Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right in to unpack a really specific, culturally nuanced topic that shows up all the time as a trap in Canadian language testing scenarios, the tenant's journey. We're going to decode the complex world of Canadian housing regulations, stretching from Quebec all the way out to British Columbia. Now, these aren't just dry legal facts. These are the exact cross-regional differences that absolutely trip people up in reading, listening, and speaking scenarios. By the time we wrap up this explainer, you're going to be completely armed with the exact keywords, the cultural context, and the legal boundaries you need to outsmart any tenancy curveball they throw at you. To do this, we're tracing the tenant's journey completely chronologically. We'll start with moving in and navigating contract traps, then we'll look at your rights while living there, move on to the rules for moving out, and finally, we'll lock in some high-scoring functional templates you can use right away. So let's kick things off with phase one, moving in. The biggest traps here all revolve around upfront fees. In Canada, tenancy acts are strictly provincial, which means the rules completely flip depending on where your scenario is set. Let's break this down. Over in Quebec, governed by the TAL, they mandate a very specific official lease called a bail. More importantly, they strictly forbid any deposits. Literally none. No damage deposits, no key deposits, just your first month's rent. Now, jump over to Ontario, run by the LTB. They require the Ontario standard lease for anything signed after 2018. Crucially, damage deposits are completely illegal in Ontario too, but last month's rent, or LMR, and a reasonable key deposit, those are perfectly legal. But then we go out west. In British Columbia, under the RTB, security and pet deposits are totally legal, though they're capped at half a month's rent. And in Alberta, the regulator, the RTDRS, says landlords can legally ask for a security deposit equal to a full month's rent. The real trap here is confusing these financial terms, because the legal boundary is incredibly strict. On one hand, you've got the security or damage deposit, what we call 安全或损害押金. This is explicitly meant to cover physical damage to the property, and as we just covered, asking for this is totally illegal in Ontario and Quebec. On the other hand, you have LMR, last month's rent, 最后一日租金押金. This is strictly a prepayment for the final month you live there, period. A landlord absolutely cannot dip into your LMR to pay for a scratched floor or broken window. So picture this. It's a classic listening trap. You hear a dialogue set in Toronto. The landlord confidently tells a prospective tenant, "We need 1 month's rent up front plus a 1-month damage deposit." Is that compliant? Well, because you know the cultural context now, you instantly spot the trap. In Ontario, a damage deposit is a legal violation. Recognizing these regional nuances is exactly how you bypass the distractors and nail those top marks. All right, let's transition to phase two. You're all moved in. Now, how do you protect your space and, more importantly, your privacy? Have you ever come across the legal term quiet enjoyment? In Chinese, we refer to this as 宁静享用权. This concept is literally the backbone of tenant rights in Canada. And it's a bit of a tricky phrase because it doesn't just mean your apartment is silent. It means you have the fundamental statutory right to use your home without unreasonable disturbances, without constant noise intrusions, and without frequent annoying non-emergency inspections from your landlord. Whenever a scenario features a landlord overstepping their boundaries, this principle is your absolute best defense. For example, if a landlord knocks on your door claiming they're just passing by for a casual check-in, you need to know this non-negotiable rule. Unless it's a literal, immediate emergency, like a burst pipe flooding the place or a fire, a landlord's right of entry strictly requires a 24-hour written notice. No exceptions. Also, watch out for scenarios dealing with standard wear and tear, or 正常磨损. If the carpet flattens out over a few years, the paint starts to fade a bit, that is 100% the landlord's responsibility. Tenants are never liable for the natural, everyday depreciation of a property. Oh, and you have to watch out for this sneaky little fine print trap in reading modules. Let's say you're reading a dense lease document, and buried right in an addendum is a no-pet clause, 禁止宠物条款. Do not be fooled. In jurisdictions like Ontario, a unilateral no-pet clause that a landlord just drafts up themselves is legally void. It means nothing. The only time it holds weight is if the building is a condominium and the official condo bylaws explicitly ban pets. You always have to determine if a rule is actually backed by provincial law, or if it's just a landlord trying to sneak in an unenforceable restriction. Okay, fast forward. Your lease is up, it's time to move out. Let's dig into the timelines and rules surrounding renewals and evictions. Notice periods are a huge target for calculation questions, especially in the reading passages. You really want to map these timelines out in your head. The contrast is wild. In Quebec, if you want to end a standard 1-year lease, you have to give this massive 3 to 6 month notice before the term ends. Otherwise, boom, it automatically renews for a whole extra year. In Ontario, for a month-to-month lease, you need to give 60 days notice using a very specific document called a Form N9. BC is exactly 1 full calendar month. But then you look at Alberta. If you have a fixed term lease there, it just ends automatically. Hard stop. Zero notice required, unless you're negotiating a brand new lease. Getting a grip on these timelines is going to save you from so many tricky date math questions. Now, what if you need to break your lease early? You've got two main options, and confusing them is a massive exam pitfall. First, there's assignment, or 租业转让. This means the lease permanently transfers over to a new tenant. You walk away completely free and clear of all future liabilities. Then you have subletting, which is 转租. This one is temporary. Say you leave for the summer, someone else moves in short term, but you, the original tenant, retain ultimate liability. If that subletter completely trashes the place, the landlord is coming straight after you for the damages. So always keep your ears and eyes open for the key word that tells you whether the original tenant is coming back or leaving for good. And here is a beautifully complex eviction scenario that pops up constantly, particularly in speaking and writing tasks. The landlord is selling the house. Do I have to leave in 30 days? When you see this, your logic has to be rock solid. Selling a property does not automatically terminate an active lease. The new buyer simply inherits you as a tenant. Now, if the new buyer wants to move in personally, they have to issue official paperwork, like an N12 in Ontario, give proper legal notice, which is usually way over 30 days, and often pay you financial compensation, like a full month's rent. You absolutely do not just pack your bags because a for sale sign goes up on the lawn. Let's bring it all home with our final section, high-scoring functional templates. This is the advanced vocabulary you need to nail the writing and speaking tasks. Imagine a scenario where your heating is completely broken and your landlord is just ghosting you. If you need to write a formal letter, memorize this exact phrasing. It asserts your tenant rights incredibly logically and professionally, completely avoiding any overly emotional language. By directly citing standard residential tenancy regulations and focusing on vital services, you set a clear, authoritative tone that examiners absolutely love. Okay, next up, what if a landlord hits you with that illegal damage deposit request we talked about earlier? You use this brilliantly diplomatic template. You're not just aggressively saying, no, that's illegal. Instead, you say, I would appreciate it if you could clarify the nature of this upfront fee. This lets you politely but very firmly question the illegitimate fee. It showcases a total grasp of the legal nuances and proves you can handle conflict like a professional. And finally, if you need to permanently leave your unit early, this is your gold standard sentence for an assignment notice. It hits literally every necessary legal buzzword. You clearly state your intention to assign, you correctly acknowledge that it is subject to reasonable consent, and you legally ground the whole thing in the Residential Tenancies Act. It is perfectly structured, airtight communication. So look how far we've come today. You've navigated the complex mouth of provincial differences, you know exactly how to spot the difference between an LMR and an illegal damage deposit, and you've got these advanced legal templates locked and loaded. Make sure you keep this mental framework handy, because if a landlord in your next scenario slides you a lease banning pets or casually texts you that they're dropping by in an hour, you now have the exact vocabulary and cultural insight ready to outsmart them completely. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and good luck.